Hello everyone, this is William with Allegory Gallery Interviews, and I'm here today with Mandy Sirofchuck of Main Exhibit Gallery here in Ligonier, Pennsylvania. Welcome, Mandy.
Hi, Will.
How's it going today?
Oh, it's a great day. Beautiful sunshine.
It's beautiful out there,
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, you can find Mandy and her work and a lot of her items on her website at mainexhibitgallery.com, and of course you can visit here in Ligonier. But we would like to talk to Mandy a little bit today about just a little bit about the beginning of her business and what she's doing now. So, Mandy, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you started Main Exhibit Gallery and how that all got going for you?
Well, my husband Paul is an architect turned furniture designer, and we were living in the Philadelphia area.
Okay.
The whole rat race there. I was working in the communications field, and we decided we wanted to simplify and leave the rat race. Paul wanted to explore his furniture more.
Okay.
So we headed west. He's originally from Western PA. And we had a relationship with Ligonier through his grandfather. So we looked at this town and we found this great brick Victorian on Main Street. We fell in love with the building, and my husband being an architect, that's kind of how we started. It's like, oh, where do you start with a business? With a business plan? Well, no, we started with a building. So we really weren't thinking of opening a gallery at the time. We just thought, this building is here. Why don't we start renovating it? And we were able to utilize the space in such a way that enabled us to also have an apartment.
Okay.
So while we're starting our business with like no money, we would have the gallery in the front of the building, and then the rear of the building, the rear 2 stories, was an apartment. So that paid for the building while we were establishing ourselves. And I continued to do freelance work, but I did it from the gallery. So I was open for business if anybody wanted to come in, but I was still working at my graphic design and freelance writing job. So we had some of Paul's furniture in the space. It was a very small space at the time. I was also working in stained glass, so I had some of my work. And then we convinced a few local artists to take a chance on us and put their work in our space. And so we would have some art openings, have some shows. We'd have some fun. Didn't really make any money the first few years, but that was just part of feeling our way around. Nowadays, I guess people would start with a business plan and maybe have some money,
It's the best way to do it.
Yeah, you have to start with it.
Either.
But since we were able to do everything ourselves, including like all of the promotion work, since my background was in communications and graphics, so I did a lot of that. And we kind of started that way. We kind of started small.
And just to tell everyone, this was before the internet. This was...
Oh, yes. This is 25 years ago.
So
we're celebrating 25
graphic
years.
Design on,
We did use a computer. The internet didn't come into play until like 4 years later. And even then, it was before we had templates. You actually had to know how to build a website. And I learned on the fly. It was tricky, but we had a presence on the internet. I wouldn't say we were, selling stuff necessarily, but people did find us that way.
Most people didn't sell stuff back then.
No, there was no shopping cart. As a matter of fact, what did help us with the internet was other artists weren't using it. And we were promoting their work on our site, some international artists. So if someone had seen a certain jewelry artist's work in a magazine, they would discover the internet and see if they could find more of that person's work. And it would actually bring them to my website. And so I was getting people from all over the country trying to buy a piece of jewelry from this artist or a handbag from that artist. So that worked for a while until everybody started using it.
The World Wide Web became flooded.
Exactly. And Etsy came along, and those like Weebly and those places that make templates, WordPress, all of that. The templates really made it much easier. And a lot of artists, let's face it, once they discovered that they could create a website, even though they were selling wholesale, they could also do retail. Why not? They went through all the trouble of creating this website for their wholesale
Oh,
market.
absolutely.
So why not have a retail market as well? So of
So
course
that
that
changed.
doesn't necessarily help a brick and mortar store.
Right.
What makes a gallery like ours work is we are in an environment, in a tourist environment.
Mm-hmm.
So there are many other shops in our town that draw people to our town.
Right.
A lot of people think, oh, it's all competition, but you need that if you want to get people to come to your
Right.
town.
You need
don't,
different things.
Yeah, you don't want to be the only deal going on.
Mm-hmm.
So people would come to Ligonier, our beautiful little Ligonier in the Laurel Highlands, because it's beautiful, because there's so many shops, so many
Right.
restaurants, and we're talking about not even a half mile of town to
Right.
walk
No,
through.
no.
So you really can find all the little shops.
Oh, absolutely.
So basically, we started with no money because we did consignment in the beginning. Then
That's the
as we
easiest
started
way.
bringing money in, I started going to shows, and back then, we're talking like 1995, 96, there were still huge buyer shows. We did the American Craft Council show in Baltimore, and we did the Rosen show. Those were all American-made craft, and that's all we carry.
And
We've
the
been doing
shows
that.
were one of the few ways to find anything.
Well, sure, and especially if we were new to the business.
Right.
My business wasn't art, actually. I started in communications. So this was a way to meet artists,
Mm-hmm.
see what they did. I would talk to the artists, learn how they did it,
Oh, yeah.
so that when I would have the work in my gallery, I could tell somebody, well, this pottery was, done this way, and this is the kind of glaze they were using, or this is the process this jeweler was
Right.
doing,
It's
or
very important
yeah,
to tell people
exactly.
how things are made.
and that's that is a big part of selling nowadays is people want the story.
Mhm, absolutely.
They want to know who made it. The whole hands-on industry is very important, especially if you're a tourist
Oh, yeah.
and coming to a town.
Yeah.
And
Well,
we're
that's what this podcast is about.
Sure,
is talking
right,
about the
right.
makers.
And you see that on the internet too now.
yeah.
It's like everybody's explaining how they make something.
Right.
Or if you read a blog, you find a recipe and you
Mhm.
just want to know how to make cauliflower soup. No, you have to find out about this person's, whole family history of
Mhm.
how they've sat down to eat soup all these years.
Right.
And actually, you have
Everything
to
is a story now.
everything is a story.
Yeah.
And so we continue that
Mhm.
at our gallery. And I think what makes people come back and be really interested in us is because we ourselves are makers, and they come in here and they see furniture by Sirofchuck Studios. It's contemporary, it's all handmade. He makes everything himself, my husband Paul. And so that's very interesting to people because,
absolutely.
Sure, you can go to a furniture store and you see a piece of furniture you like, but you don't know anything about it. He can, or I can talk about him and I can say, well, this cherry wood comes from our property,
Right.
and he has a sawmill and he cuts it himself and he does this himself and he does that himself.
Yeah.
So it's that really hands-on touch that we can offer that make people come back,
Right.
or that bring interest to coming to the town. And there are many other shops in Ligonier now that have that
Oh, yeah.
ability, because a lot of other shops feature work made locally.
Locally.
And we are also trying to do more local. I mean,
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit. Like, let's tell the people what kind of items you have in shop.
Well, we have pottery, and we've always carried pottery. Years ago, a lot of the pottery came from the West Coast and in the Midwest,
Okay.
in addition to some East Coast work. Of course, when we had that recession, a lot of artists stopped going to shows.
Right.
To ship their pottery from the West Coast for an East Coast show was cost prohibitive, so we stopped seeing a lot of that. And then for us to even order work from the West Coast and get it here was just astronomical.
Right.
And we didn't want to have to pass shipping costs on to our customers here in the East.
Mhm.
So the past 5-6 years, I've looked more to East Coast pottery people, and as much as I can to Pennsylvania
Right,
ceramic artists,
absolutely.
and if possible, local artists, of which there are many in our area. Just many of them keep to themselves. So
Well,
we're
it's true, and the internet has allowed them to do that
Yes. Yeah.
And I know we always look for local bead makers and artists, and it is difficult because they have their own little business already, or they have their own thing that they can do. So it is harder to get them to supply to a brick and mortar now.
Exactly. And also we do want to offer work that people aren't seeing everywhere, because especially in Western Pennsylvania, we have so many festivals.
Well, and as
we have
the
so many
shows
craft
have died
shows.
down,
Yeah.
as they've gotten smaller or gotten less numerous, everyone's buying the same thing now.
Yes. So to keep our look fresh, we focus on crafters that are not exhibiting somewhere close by, so that when tourists come through town especially, they see something they haven't seen somewhere else.
Yeah.
So that is, that's a bit challenging too, because let's face it, especially potters who, they have to make a lot of pots to make a living. They're going to try to put their work wherever they can.
Absolutely.
So that's one of our challenges, but we still are looking for potters, and we're also trying to increase awareness with the public of what goes into, for example, making a mug. Folks will look at a mug and they'll say, "Oh my gosh, $25 or $32 for a mug."
Right.
Well, then they take a class in our fairly new art center where we have 7 pottery wheels, and they try to make a mug in a 6-week class. And after 6 weeks, after being instructed on how to do a form, how to throw on the wheel, and then after we bisque fire it, and then when they have a glazing class, and then they glaze it, and then they look at their mug and compare it to our $32 mug, then they say,
understand.
"Wow, I know why that mug is $32.
Right, absolutely.
Or, this was a lot more difficult than I ever thought. There's a lot more that goes into making something than I ever expected."
Oh, absolutely.
And that's one of the reasons we wanted to have an art center, was to give people an appreciation for the very craft that we sell.
Right.
So in our art center, we've been doing wheel thrown pottery, which is challenging, and you have to do that over a course of several weeks. We've also done slab work, which is where we just roll out the clay and you build something. Now that we do in a 2-hour workshop, and it's of course much easier.
Right.
We've also done some stained glass work, which is my forte.
Okay.
And with that, I don't start with an entire panel, for example. We do little, I guess what you would call a make and take, where we'll have a table full of glass fragments, let's say, that they don't have to cut. And I show them how to work with a grinder and how to work with copper foil. And we create what I call like a birdie bits class, where you take these pieces of glass and you make them into little birds, and we frame them. And it's a lot of fun. But what it does is it shows people how copper foil stained glass is done. We also do the same with a lead panel. Okay. So what that does is it piques people's interest. If they thought they might want to try working in stained glass, they could come to our art center where we supply everything. They don't have to go out and buy any tools. And if they see that they enjoyed working with copper foil or enjoyed working with the lead, they might want to move on and do a panel, which we can do over several weeks. But if they find that they didn't enjoy soldering, well, then they're not going to like making stained glass windows.
Well, it's a good way to dip their toes in the pool.
Exactly. Yeah. And some people don't really want to learn a new skill and move on. They just want to make something. And that's another fun thing. That's one of the great things about having an art center here in Ligonier, is we've got a lot of folks that want to just make something.
Try.
And another thing we found too is a lot of people are scaling down. They are not, we have a lot of retirees, for example, in the town, and they are downsizing.
Yes.
So they're not looking for more pottery for their home or more paintings. No. They want an experience.
They want to enrich themselves.
Right. So they come into my gallery, they see some pottery, they see some stained glass, they see some watercolor batik paintings. They think it's great. I tell them, hey, why don't you try doing it yourself? We've got a class here. Yes. So they see the artwork, they get an appreciation for it, then they make it themselves, and they have more appreciation for it.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
that's kind of how our gallery has evolved. It's gone from just featuring our own work to featuring local artists to featuring national artists, then scaling back to
again.
local artists, then scaling back in a way to just how things are made.
Right.
And now that's one of the things we're trying to build is more classes, more experiences for people. Of course, we still sell work,
Right.
and we're still here for the folks who need something now.
Right.
You know, I'm going to a wedding this afternoon.
Which happens a lot here
and
in
it
Ligonier.
does. It does. People come to town, you know,
Looking
their
for that
best
perfect
friend is
gift.
getting married and they haven't bought a gift yet.
Yep.
So it's like, okay, they're really good friends,
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
And you know, and also just let's face it, shopping is a form of entertainment for a lot of people, especially when they're on a trip.
Yes.
So they're coming out for the
Visiting.
weekend or they're visiting from Florida or whatever,
Right.
and they want
It's
to
a fun
shop.
time out with friends.
Right.
Yeah.
And of course, if they can find something that's made locally, especially,
It goes home with them.
that's very important.
That's what
right.
we hope anyway.
That's what we hope, right. And lately, a lot of people, you know, listening to this podcast wouldn't know about that, but the center of our town called the Diamond recently underwent a renovation. And in doing that, we had to forfeit many of the old trees that were on the Diamond, mostly maple trees. So the folks, the Mellons who put a lot of the money forward to have that renovation done were also renovating our library. And they made a condition that all of the new tables in our library had to be made from the trees that came down from the Diamond.
Yes.
So they commissioned my husband to do that, since he could take the rough lumber, basically he could take the tree
Right.
and cut it into the boards and dry it and make it into the tables. So we did that. Our new library now has these beautiful tables sourced from our local wood, which we call diamond
They
wood.
are beautiful.
They are. But we had more wood left over. And a lot of people, especially locals, or even people who have moved out of the area, heard that we had this wood. Do you have any leftover wood? Can we get some of it? So we started making some things from that wood that folks could purchase, and we stamped it. We created a stamp that said Ligonier Diamond Wood. And so now folks were buying cutting boards, and also we made pens. And that's another local item made from local trees, made by a local artist that people could get their hands on and have either, you know, to use or to just hang around or look at or whatever or collect. But you know, it was an incredible response to locally made products.
Yeah.
And I
There's
think
a demand for it out
there is.
there.
I think more and more, if people want to buy something, I think they want it locally made, and if they can find out who made it, that's even better. How it's made, that's great. You know, if they can meet the person who made it, that's another wonderful thing. So I think we're kind of, even though we're in a high-tech society, people yearn for hands-on.
Oh, they do.
They
I think
really
more
do.
now than ever almost, because we are so inundated with tech. And now to have something that is low tech and something that is just there and beautiful, I think is what people are really looking to try and surround themselves with, to get, if not to get away from the technical stuff, but to have a way of escaping it a little bit.
Sure. Well, you know what? History repeats itself.
Absolutely.
Okay? The Industrial Revolution, okay, where they started mass producing clothing and furniture. Then you had the craftsman's movement, which was a response to the Industrial Revolution.
Absolutely.
And handmade furniture and handmade textiles and pottery became very popular. Well, we're having that all over again. We had this 20 years now of technology taking off. And now people, while they're not going to give up their technology, they want to have a hands-on experience, either themselves, or they want to buy something that's handmade. They want a connection to the maker. And it's all over. It's in Pittsburgh, you know, Makers Fest, all kinds of things. Mon-Made,
we have a lot of friends who go to these shows, and they've seen the audience increase again. And there are more and more people coming to these kinds of maker shows. So yeah, absolutely. I think people are trying to strike a balance in their life between tech and just escaping it.
Sure. For a lot of people, it's more of a I don't want to say just a hobby, but it's an outlet.
Right.
It's a response to maybe their high stress job
Mm-hmm.
or their job that's
absolutely.
just maybe not stressful, but just not really exciting.
Yeah.
So
Well, and that's,
you know.
we were talking with Clayton Hepler of Scamps Toffee, and he mentioned his inspiration was to find the why and to find the what. So he said you find what you want to do, and if you find why you want to do it, the how will come. So whether it's a side business or whether it's a full business, you really have to emphasize, is this what I want to do? And why do I actually want to do it? Is it just an escape, or is it something that I'm passionate about? And I think that makes the difference.
Well, I guess really that is how we came to start our gallery,
Mhm.
because my husband was an architect in Philadelphia, working for a big firm. He was doing very well. We were both doing very well. I was in communications, as I said. We didn't live in the city. We lived in Bucks County, but we had to both commute,
Mhm.
and that took a lot of
Commute can
time
kill.
out of our day. and he was always thinking in the back of his mind about his own designs, because
Right.
working in a big architecture firm, you're working on somebody else's designs.
Yes.
And so he'd always made furniture.
Mhm.
But we started small. We were at our little house that we spent 5 years renovating in Bucks County, and he started making a few pieces for friends, and whatever he would sell, he would invest in tools.
Mhm.
So he found that was really what he had a passion for.
Yes.
He had a degree in architecture. He was a registered, licensed architect, and while he liked architecture, the philosophy of it, all of the old time thought of what goes into architecture,
Oh,
like
yeah.
Frank Lloyd Wright.
Mhm.
That's not what he was doing.
Right.
He was doing floor plans
Producing,
or whatever.
Yeah. Mhm.
But the furniture, he was able to incorporate his design sense, what he learned as an architecture student, into creating his own furniture designs. And he found that this is really what I do have a passion for. He'd be at work, and at lunchtime he'd be sketching designs of
When
furniture.
that starts happening, there's
right,
something happening.
and it's like he
Yeah.
couldn't wait to get home so he could work on furniture. He wasn't getting home to work on, let me design something for architecture.
Right.
It was the furniture thing. And we looked at where we were in the Bucks County area, and we said, gee, as much as we've put all this time into this great little house,
Mhm.
we don't have the space. If you really want to pursue this passion, we can't do it here.
No.
So we looked to see if we could find more space, but in the Philadelphia area, space is very expensive.
Yes.
Bucks County, you can't buy acreage there. We could never afford it. So since he was from Western PA, we started looking out this way.
Mhm.
And we said, we could do this. We don't have any kids yet, and we could just kind of chuck the whole 9-to-5 job, come out here with the sale of the
It's
house.
a brave move.
We could, yeah, it was. But we said, hey, it's just the two of us. I could be a waitress if I have
What's
to.
the worst that's going to happen?
But it never came to that,
Right.
because he started entering juried shows with his furniture
Mhm.
while he was building our dream house,
Right.
while we had the house that we had just renovated into a gallery. I was able to support us enough with freelance work. I worked for the Trib,
Okay.
and I did freelance graphic design, and I was making some stained glass here and there.
Yeah.
So money was coming in, and then he was doing work that he could put in shows. Then people started seeing his work. And I often tell beginning artists,
Mhm.
I said, you know what? Get into some shows.
Right.
If you're a creative person, if you're doing painting or craft or whatever, if it's an original of yours,
Yes.
it can't be something you're copying, it can't be from a kit. There's a lot of
Fill out
art
those
shows.
applications
Yes,
and get in.
fill out an application, get into a juried art show. Even if it's just a local art center that maybe the criteria isn't as high and you're a
Right.
beginner. A lot of people see your work that way.
Right.
And that's how we did it. He got into some juried art shows. He won awards. Then what can you generate when you win an award? You can generate a press release.
Absolutely.
Especially back then, newspapers were really big on printing anything about local people who won something.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we did. We had free advertising because he won an award.
Yeah.
So we got a lot of press that way. And then all of a sudden, people wanted to write articles about him. So they would come to our little gallery. That's how we got known. It's just one thing built on another.
Right. And that's the thing.
It's not easy.
No.
It takes a lot of work.
A lot of people, I think, they come into your shop, they come into other shops, and they see what's there. And they think, oh, well, they just opened this. This is great that they could do this, but look what they've done. No, it's baby steps all along the way.
Oh, it's all baby steps. Yeah. And it's especially important to do baby steps if you don't have a lot of financing.
Yes.
And that was always our mantra.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't have the money now, we're not going to buy it. If we don't have, when we go to a show, if I don't have the money available to buy this work, even if I don't have to pay for it right away, I'm not going to buy it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I don't know if I'm going to be able to sell it.
Yeah.
You know, so
and that's a very different thing than this age of instant gratification.
It is.
But it's necessary.
It's very necessary. Mm-hmm. And that is why we're here after 25 years.
Right.
Also, what helped us in our particular case is we've always done everything ourselves. Now, my husband is an architect, but he also is a builder. So this building needed a lot of work, this gallery. We came here, there were bats in the attic.
Okay.
We literally had 3 feet of guano in the attic.
Oh, wow.
Okay? That was the first step of getting rid of the bats, getting rid of the guano, redoing the entire building from the electrical to the plumbing, everything, and converting one half into a gallery and one half into an apartment. That would pay the mortgage.
Right.
Now, we weren't living here, we were living somewhere else. But that mortgage payment helped us to not have to worry about that while we're trying to build our business.
Absolutely.
So many people, unfortunately, have to pay rent.
Yes.
I mean, that's just the way it is, especially in Ligonier, because you can't go out and buy a building anymore.
No.
They're not there. So you have to keep that in mind. It's like, can you meet your expenses? Maybe the last 6 months of the year when Ligonier is really busy, June through, but can you support yourself January through March or January through April? That's what you really have to look at if you're a craftsperson. And
that's where watching your pennies counts. Watch them during the busy season and hold them for the slow.
Right. And a lot of folks who are used to working for someone and getting a paycheck and getting health care paid for and whatnot, paid vacations, you realize once you're in business for yourself, you don't have paid vacations anymore. You want to go away for a week?
There is no vacation
You either
anymore.
close up or you pay somebody to watch your shop for you while you go off and have fun. And of course, you have to have money for that. So I know a lot of folks come into my space and they think, all they do is they buy something for one price and sell it for another and they make all this money. No,
it's not that easy.
It doesn't work that way. It really isn't that easy. It really isn't.
And I don't think you should go into, especially an arts field business, thinking that.
No.
I think you should go in wanting to do it because you love it, not because you think you're going to make tons of money doing it.
Exactly. And that brings us back again to Paul's work. We opened the gallery specifically to have a place for him to show his work. But we felt, other artists are in the area who might want a venue and we'd be happy to consign their work too. And then we just got carried away, especially when you go to these shows and you see this magnificent art and you say, everybody in town would want to have this, And so you're taking a risk there too. It's like, I've got to buy some of this jewelry because everybody's going to want it. And then you find out that Well, people in Western Pennsylvania don't really like that.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, it might be a great seller in, San Francisco
Right.
or New York City, but
Yeah,
it's just not.
You have to know your community.
You
and know
had
your
to,
market.
yes, and that takes a long time. And
Yes.
I think I've seen a lot of businesses come and go in our town because they don't understand that.
They want to push what they want to push rather than get to know
Sure.
who they're selling to.
And they forget too that you've got a few years before you're going to see any return on any investment that you have.
Oh, absolutely.
So you really have to have something behind you to be able to do that, whether it's a freelance job or maybe you're making the work yourself and you just have your own storefront, kind of like what you folks do at Allegory.
Oh, yeah.
You're a makers as well as a storefront, so that works for you. And
I had 2 other jobs for the first 4 years, so we definitely started it as, it was a brick and mortar, but it was on the side as much as it had to be until we got to the point where I didn't need that anymore. So it's baby steps. It's really
baby steps, and it is your life.
Right.
Okay, you have to look at it. It's
no
not
matter if it's a side or not, it becomes your life.
It's not making a living.
Right.
It's your life. It is what we do. We do it because we love interacting with other artists.
Right.
We do it because we love making art.
Oh yeah.
We love talking about our art. We love talking about
for hours
other
about
people's art. It's just, and then you say to yourself, well, would you want to be doing anything else? If somebody offered you a job that paid twice as much,
right?
Would you want to be doing that, or would you want to continue what you're doing? And
if you can say no to the money,
exactly,
then you're in the right spot.
Right, we both say that. I often tell my husband, so what are you going to do when you retire? It's not going to be any different than what he's doing now.
Right, exactly.
He's going to keep making furniture, and it's a little different, of course, once you reach that point where you're a success,
right,
where people come to you because they want your work. Then you can say, well, I don't have to work as hard.
Right.
I can make this many pieces and then I can have some fun.
Right.
But when we started,
That's a long time coming.
It was all of our time was in the business end of things, And of course, he got to do most of the playing. I had to run the business.
Right.
So now I'm starting to get back into my craft, my stained glass. I'm doing stained glass windows, which are mostly commission work. I'm teaching a little bit. And I've also gotten into a new endeavor, which I always wanted to try, which was glass painting, which is a very old craft. It's what you would see if you go into old churches, old cathedrals, where they have lines painted on faces. It's actually something that involves working with glass, working with a special kind of material that's not really a paint, more like a glaze, and then putting it in a kiln. Okay. So the glass has to be fired to 1240 degrees.
Okay.
And then you incorporate it into your panel. So I've taken some classes on that. I'll be going for another class on another version, another type of technique incorporating glass painting and glass fusing. Okay. So now that I've established my business and my husband is established, now I get to play a little bit too.
Absolutely.
And I'm rediscovering my love of stained glass, which I always loved from the time I was in high school. I wanted to do stained glass windows, and I took a college course, and learned how to build the traditional stained glass windows. And then I went on and learned how to work with the copper foil technique. So I had to put that on a back seat when the business got busy.
Right.
When our daughter was born, I couldn't do all of it. So now that she's in college, pursuing a degree in art and English, and hopefully maybe she'll take over our business for us. So now I get to play with my work and hopefully turn some other people on to stained glass,
well,
even if it's just for fun.
How can people sign up for your classes?
Well, what we do is we have a subscriber button on our website, and this, if you subscribe, whenever I do have classes in anything, I send out a blanket email. And it just, what that allows me to do more than a regular mailing is, first of all, it doesn't cost as much. Right. And secondly, I could plan a class in 2 weeks. and get the
absolutely.
word out there. And if you subscribe, it'll also post on Facebook.
Mhm.
And my problem, of course, with my classes is scheduling times, you know? When do people want to take a class?
Exactly.
Do they want to take it in the morning during the week? Do they want to
Mhm.
take it on a Sunday afternoon? Do they want to take it at night? So sometimes I have to sit and think, oh, when am I going to schedule this class? And then it takes
Well,
me
you
a
have to
while
fit it into
before
your life too.
yeah, it has to fit into my life. I have to plan way ahead because
Mhm.
I'm thinking, okay, well, I want to give people at least like 2 or 3 weeks notice before I throw
To
this
schedule
class
their
at them.
life, right.
And you know, I still have so many things going on, but we do have other artists that have committed, for example, to pottery, wheel
Okay.
pottery,
Mhm.
which, as I've said before, is a 6-week commitment because you need that amount of time to really learn how to throw on the wheel.
Right.
But then we have somebody else who's going to be doing some little like 2-hour workshops, just build a mug, hand build, and we schedule those periodically. We have another woman who, she's really good. She's right on target with always having at least 3 dates planned for her watercolor batik paintings,
That's good.
which has become very popular. So once a month we offer those.
Right.
And we have somebody now who wants to teach something called acrylic pour, which
Okay.
is just a fun thing.
Yeah.
So, and we had somebody come in who did beautiful scarf dyeing.
Yeah.
Whatever, we're experimenting. We're finding artists. Whoever wants to teach something, I'm trying to make it
room,
work.
make
You know,
room, right?
we will have a very well known block printing artist, Mary Hamilton from Reimersburg. She's going to come and show people how to do linoleum block printing. You know, you'll be
cool.
cutting your own linoleum blocks and printing them. It's a really cool process. We have her work on display here. So it's been an artist that we've carried for many, many years, and we're excited about having her. And but you know, once again, if you subscribe to on mainexhibitgallery.com, all we need is a name and an email. Then whenever we do have something coming up,
You'll
it goes
know about
right
it.
out. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And there will be things coming up, and you know, we're trying to get this art center really moving. It's been about 3 years now since we started with that. So
It's a really beautiful space,
yeah,
everyone.
it's a nice space. Yeah.
I encourage you to sign up at mainexhibitgallery.com. And with that, we will bring this to a close. So thank you very much, Mandy.
Thank you, Will.
It's great to talk to you.
You too.
And I hope everyone liked it. I hope everyone goes to your website, checks everything out, and we will talk to you later.